Welcome to our Regulation Mastery session. In this session, we will continue reading the CSSF Circular 22-806 from Part 1 Outsourcing Arrangements, Chapter 4. Governance of Outsourcing Arrangements. Chapter 4. Governance of Outsourcing Arrangements. Subchapter 4.1 Assessment of Outsourcing Arrangements. Section 4.1.1 Outsourcing. 15. In-scope entities shall establish whether an arrangement with a third party falls under the definition of outsourcing. Within this assessment, consideration shall be given to whether the function, or a part thereof, that is outsourced to a service provider is performed on a recurrent, or an ongoing basis by the service provider, and whether this function, or part thereof, would normally fall within the scope of functions that would or could realistically be performed by in-scope entities, even if the in-scope entity has not performed this function in the past itself. 16. Where an arrangement with a service provider covers multiple functions, in-scope entities shall consider all aspects of the arrangement within their assessment, e.g. if the service provided includes the provision of data storage hardware and the backup of data, both aspects shall be considered together. 17. As a general principle, in-scope entities shall not consider the following as outsourcing. A. A function that is legally required to be performed by a service provider, e.g. statutory audit. B. Market information services, e.g. provision of data by Bloomberg, Moody's, Standard & Poor's, Fitch. C. Global network infrastructures, e.g. Visa, MasterCard. D. Clearing and settlement arrangements between clearing houses, central counterparties, and settlement institutions and their members. E. Global financial messaging infrastructures that are subject to oversight by relevant authorities. F. Correspondent banking services, and G. The acquisition of services that would otherwise not be undertaken by the in-scope entity, e.g. advice from an architect, legal advice and representation in front of the court and administrative bodies, cleaning, gardening and maintenance of the in-scope entity's premises, medical services, servicing of company cars, catering, vending machine services, clerical services, travel services, post-room services, receptionists, secretaries and switchboard operators, goods, e.g. plastic cards, card readers, office supplies, personal computers, furniture, or utilities, e.g. electricity, gas, water, telephone line. Section 4.1.2 Critical, or important functions. 18. In-scope entities shall always consider a function as critical, or important in the following situations. A. Where a defect or failure in its performance would materially impair I. Their continuing compliance with the conditions of their authorization, and or their other legal and regulatory obligations. 2. Their financial performance, or 3. The soundness or continuity of their services and activities. B. When operational tasks of internal control functions, or operational tasks of the financial and accounting function, as referred in points 21 to 29 are outsourced. C. When credit institutions and payment institutions intend to outsource functions of banking activities, or payment services to an extent that would require authorization 15 by the relevant competent authority, as referred to in points 61 to 63. 19. In the case of BRRD institutions, particular attention shall be given to the assessment of the criticality, or importance of functions, if the outsourcing concerns functions related to core business lines and critical functions. According to the BRRD law, and identified by these institutions, using the criteria set out in Articles 6 and 7 of Commission Delegated Regulation, EU 2016-778. Functions that are necessary to perform activities of core business lines or critical functions shall be considered as critical or important functions for the purpose of this circular, unless the BRRD institution's assessment establishes that a failure to provide the outsourced function or the inappropriate provision of the outsourced function would not have an adverse impact on the operational continuity of the core business line or critical function. 20. When assessing whether an outsourcing arrangement relates to a function that is critical or important, in-scope entities shall take into account, together with the outcome of the risk assessment outlined in points 66 to 70, at least the following factors. A. Whether the outsourcing arrangement is directly connected to core business activities. B. The potential impact of any disruption to the outsourced function or failure of the service provider to provide the service at the agreed service levels on a continuous basis on their I. Short and long-term financial resilience and viability, including, if applicable, its assets, capital, costs, funding, liquidity, profits and losses. 2. Business continuity and operational resilience. 3. Operational risk, including conduct, ICT and legal risks. 4. Reputational risks. V. Where applicable, recovery and resolution planning, resolvability, and operational continuity in an early intervention, recovery or resolution situation. C. The potential impact of the outsourcing arrangement on their ability to I. Identify, monitor and manage all risks. 2. Comply with legal and regulatory requirements. 3. Conduct appropriate audits regarding the outsourced function. D. The potential impact on the services provided to its clients. E. All outsourcing arrangements, the in-scope entity's aggregated exposure to the same service provider, and the potential cumulative impact of outsourcing arrangements in the same business area. F. The size and complexity of any business area affected. G. The possibility that the proposed outsourcing arrangement might be scaled up without replacing or revising the underlying agreement. H. The ability to transfer the proposed outsourcing arrangement to another service provider, if necessary or desirable, both contractual and in practice, including the estimated risks, impediments to business continuity, costs and time frame for doing so of substitutability. I. The ability to reintegrate the outsourced function into the in-scope entity, if necessary or desirable. J. The protection of data and the potential impact of a confidentiality breach or failure to ensure data availability and integrity on the in-scope entity and its clients, including but not limited to compliance with GDPR.